Shalom, shalom, and welcome. Welcome to Final Exodus Alert number 3. My name is Symmanayah if you're tuning in for the first time. Let's get started. My brothers and sisters, this is worthy to be called an alert, for end times are here. Whether we realize it or not, there are critical things, critical tasks that must be and will be accomplished as the Almighty Father draw those whom he has chosen to bring an awakening nation together. Those he has chosen to lead will rise up among the awakening children of Yahuah, and we will witness the formation of the 144,000 in a great multitude as mentioned in Revelation 7th chapter. My brothers and sisters, this alert is to bring your attention to flesh and spirit. Flesh and spirit. I say to you, Shalom again. I have witnessed, my brothers and sisters, throughout fellowships, throughout the internet landscape, so to speak, throughout the world, my brothers and sisters, I have seen individuals who are awakening to the fact that we who are indeed Hebrews are bring by race to wake up with excitement, but also anger and disappointment. I've witnessed as we begin to identify the race of Hebrews, many people think that in itself gives you entitlement. For the Most High Father chose Abraham. You know that Abarim basically was the original descriptor of Abraham's seed, descendants of Abraham. Hebrew came later. Well, I'm not here to do a history lesson in that regard, my brothers and sisters. This alert is to address the issue and challenges that we will face in coming together as an awakening nation, set apart, drawn by the Almighty Father Yahuah. You see, there are many people who are awakened, and for some reason they think that it makes us so much superior over Gentiles. Some have gone to the fact that they become so dogmatic that they close the door to the priority of the spirit within a person. Some have become so dogmatic it chases those who are Gentiles, other nations, Goyim, away. It does not offer an opportunity to reflect that the Almighty Father opens his arms and draws those who seek to do his will, that he draw them out, regardless of race. My brothers and sisters, I have witnessed individuals put down Gentiles and Goyim based off of scriptures that they read, but they forget that there are Gentiles and Goyim that are made one with set apart Yasharal. And just as there are wicked Hebrews, there are wicked Gentiles. Just as there are set apart Hebrews, there are set apart Gentiles. These final days will prove if we cannot accept and receive what is true, then we fail when it comes to obeying the Almighty Father. Our earthen bodies will return to the earth, to the dirt, and our spirits will be with Yahusha Mashiach. But for those who are not part of the children of the Almighty Yahuah, the spirit will face everlasting fire. For those who are the children of the Almighty Father, everlasting life. While I was praying, my brothers and sisters, it was as though the Spirit pressed upon me to reaffirm in awakening nation that our spirit, the inward man, the part of us that lasts forever, is most important. It was as though the Spirit of Yahusha was emphasizing the need for awakening the children of the Almighty Father to know the difference between flesh and spirit. There are those who would have you think spirit, or even the set apart spirit of Yahuah, is breath. Breath has no conscience, my brothers and sisters. Breath is a word that was used to closely resemble what you can't touch, what you can't physically feel. It was the closest description that can be given to spirit, for spirit we cannot feel the spirit. Although many will say, I feel the spirit. The spirit, the closest thing to describe it is breath. But the spirit is not breath. The spirit is the living part of us that lives within these earthen vessels. The Spirit of Yahuah is He and He alone, and He is alive. I've talked about people who prefer to sensationalize the word Ruach HaKodesh, and that means set apart spirit, or Ruach, that means spirit. As we are told, it means this in modern Hebrew. But I say to you, O Yasharal, the scriptures throughout tell us the importance of the name, So I'm not saying Ruach HaKodesh is wrong, but I'm saying we are entering into an era where we will realize the power in the name of the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name. Yahusha's name, identifying He, the Almighty Father Yahuah, manifests His word in the person of Yahusha. Flesh and blood, my brothers and sisters, we will grow to understand the priority in our existence, how these earthen vessels are indeed where the Most High dwell within, and how our spirit has become one with Him, and how through our refinement and discipline, that is Him cleaning up His temples, His vessels, His children. That is a reflection, my brothers and sisters, of the promised discipline. Many people have a hard time understanding the dynamics, the interactions of flesh and spirit. My brothers and sisters, I ask you, are we not aware that we are the seed of Abraham? Are we not aware that as the seed of Abraham, we have an obligation and a responsibility? I'm going to read some things to you in a moment, my brothers and sisters, but I want to say this. I've seen people who are not Hebrew research the truth and seek out the truth. And some of them know who the true Hebrews are, who the true Abarim are. But because there are so many Hebrew, or as some would say, Hebrew Israelites, that are so dogmatic and so racist, who wickedly take on the mantle just because of race, that these who are non-Hebrews will not acknowledge who we are. It is not hard or difficult to determine who the true Hebrews are. There are individuals who hunger for set apartness, but because of the dogmatic Hebrew or Hebrew Israelites, as some will say, these who are not Hebrews will not acknowledge us. But in due season, the Almighty Father will make sure and make known, as He is already, as it is unfolding already, the truth is coming out. Just as there are dogmatic Hebrews, there are dogmatic Gentiles. Because of the dogma, because of erroneous teachings, because of wicked behaviors, because of focus on the flesh and race alone, many are reluctant to acknowledge what is indeed true. Have we ever heard a parent or guardian or someone say, you're better than them, you're better than that? We have an obligation to act better, to rise above the wickedness. We have a responsibility to reflect the ways of the Almighty Father. Let me read some things to you, O Yasharal. For as end times become intense, diverse people will come together from many different races under one banner, Yasharal, as one set apart family. Let me read Genesis 17:5. Here are words spoken to Abraham. And it is the Most High said, and no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations. A father of many nations. Are we not descendants of Abraham? Are we not of the seed of Abraham? And if so, we're the seed of someone whom the Father said is the father of nations. So do we not have a responsibility to rise above what everybody else is doing, what everybody else is thinking, what everybody else is saying, and step into the responsibility as a seed of He who is the Father of many nations? Let me read John 8:39. It reads, they answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. Yahusha said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. Are we the seed of Abraham? Let us do the works of Abraham. What is the work of Abraham? To seek to do the will and do the will of the Almighty Father Yahuah. Yes, some will think of the seed as just talking about just Yahusha coming. But ask yourself, who is the creator of the seed of set apartness? Where is the origin? Where does it begin? And I say to you, it is Yahuah, who is the Aleph and the Tah, the beginning and the end. It begins with the Almighty Father. Set apart ones, we begin with him, for it is he who draws us. Galatians 3:7 says, know then that those who are of belief are the sons of Abraham. We're the sons of he who is the father of nations. We have a responsibility, O Yasharal. Genesis chapter 2 verse 7 says, and Yahuah formed the man out of the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils breath of life, and man became a living being. This is when the Most High created a spirit within us, within these earthen vessels. And that is the inward man. That is the inward you, the inward me. It is our spirit that will live forever. The question is whether it would be with Yahusha Mashiach and everlasting life or everlasting damnation. Pray, O Yasharal, for these words are to the set apart children of Yahuah. Ecclesiastes 3:20 and 21 says, all are going to one place, all came from the dust, and all return to the dust. Who knows the spirit of the sons of men, which goes upward, and the spirit of the beast, which goes down to the earth? You see, my brothers and sisters, he is speaking when he say all, he's talking about this flesh, material things we can literally touch and feel and physically see, will return to the dust, my brothers and sisters. Scriptures speak of a transformation that will come. It is not these earthen vessels that live forever, my brothers and sisters. So the priority is the spirit. Yes, the spirit dwells in these earthen vessels. Yes, we have an obligation to keep this flesh into subjection and walk in obedience. But the scriptures let us know that the flesh will continue to war against the spirit day by day. Shaul even mentioned dying day by day. We are told to sacrifice or make ourselves a living offering before the Almighty Father, to yield to his ways, his laws, his statutes, his commandments, his living orders, his living words. John 11:25 through 26 says, Yahusha said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he dies, he shall live. And everyone that is living and believing in me shall never die at all. Shall never die at all. Shall never die at all. I'm repeating it. Yes, I am. And he asked her, do you believe this? So you see, my brothers and sisters, it is the spirit of a man. And I could surely say the spirit of a man or a woman. It is the spirit of us that lives forever. But the question is, where? The 11th chapter brought up the time dealing with Lazarus or Elazar. And if you go down to the 43rd verse in the 11th chapter of John, 43 and 44, you'll see what occurred. And when he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Elazar, come out. And he who died came out, bound feet and hands with wrappings, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Yahusha said to them, loosen him and let him go. You see, Yahusha is the resurrection, my brothers and sisters. How many of us are aware that in the resurrection there comes a transformation? My brothers and sisters, the complexity of our existence regarding flesh and spirit, man struggle with understanding that. Though we may try to teach people to understand, some because of wickedness, some because of a rebellious nature and ill pursuits, are made blind, are void of discerning and understanding the dynamics of flesh and spirit. I want to bring to mind, my brothers and sisters, though race has its place in the scriptures, in every real sense of the way, it is our spirit. It is the seed of the man. It is the inward man That is a reflection of Abraham's seed. That is a reflection of the Father of nations. That is a reflection of the life that we have been given by the Almighty Father Yahuah. It is that seed of righteousness, that seed of set apartness that makes us one in Yahusha HaMashiach by his sacrifice and resurrection, by the drawing power of the Almighty Father. For the sake of time, know this, O Yasharal, our bodies have an appointment with physical death, in or at the very least, in these end times, there will be a transformation where the bodies will return back to the earth, as I read earlier in Ecclesiastes. Pray, O Yasharal, for greater is the life that we will have once these bodies have been transformed than the life that we have now. It will be beyond race. It would be about set apartness. We who are the children of Yahuah are made one by Yahusha HaMashiach. 1 John 3:2 says, Beloved ones, now we are the children of the Almighty One. It has not yet been revealed what we shall be, but we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, and we shall see him as he is. My brothers and sisters, as end times ramp up, we will come to discern the place of race, but we will also grow to know the realities of the importance of the spirit of an individual, the spirit of one another. Matthew 12:50 says, For whoever does the desire of my Father who is in the heavens is my brother and sister and mother. This is a verse that if we can see the life in there, once we understand the dynamics of the set apart family of Yasharal, we become one. It is made more clear to us, my brothers and sisters, and it will. Race has its place. For many believe that we should not even talk about race. But if that was the case, how then do we identify becoming one from being Hebrew or Abrim and Gentiles becoming one of the Yahusha HaMashiach? How then do we identify the 12 tribes mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter if we were to ignore race? But the priority is the Spirit, my brothers and sisters, and the Spirit working in us, through us, one towards another, and before those who will witness the demonstration of the set-apart children of Yahuah. Romans 10:11-13 says, Because the scriptures say, whoever, I'm repeating, yes, puts his trust in him shall not be put to shame, because there is no distinction between Yehudite and Greek. For the same master of all is rich to all those calling upon him. For everyone who calls on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. It is referring to those who are responding to his drawing power. I mention often John 6:44 and John 12:32. And I will visit it again and again, my brothers and sisters. Let us know the drawing power of the Most High. Galatians 3:28 says, There is not Yehudite nor Greek. There is not slave nor free. There is not male or female. For you are all one in Messiah Yahusha. And many people take this verse to think that we're not supposed to talk about race. But again, how can scriptures be fulfilled regarding Abraham's seed, regarding drawing his children back to the promised land, regarding the 12 tribes of Yasharal? You see, we will come to understand that we will identify race, but the priority is the spirit of the man. We will identify race because we must be able to demonstrate how different races, many nations, can come together as one under the banner of Yasharal by the drawing power of the Almighty Father. Otherwise, we're warring to void out some of the scriptures. This is an alert. It warrants an alert, because as end times come, we must embrace people of many different cultures, backgrounds, and nations. But they must. It is imperative that they are indeed seeking to do the will of the Almighty Father. They are indeed part of the set-apart family. You see, Revelation 7:4 says, I heard a number of those who were sealed, 144,000 sealed out of all the 12 tribes of the children of Yasharal. And if you read it, my brothers, further, it describes the 12 tribes that it is referencing. How then can we describe and acknowledge and confirm if we don't recognize race? Many of us may be wondering, well, what tribe am I from? I say to you, O Yasharal, the great multitude of set apart ones will be under the banner of Yasharal. Do not get caught up in chasing genealogies and trying to find out what's my DNA. You see, my brothers and sisters, the scriptures tell us how the Almighty Father will draw his children. The scriptures we know and anticipate will be fulfilled. All that is written will come to life, and we will come to understand it completely. You see, my brothers and sisters, I wanted to find this one here that talks, here it is. Titus 3:9. Come with me and read. It says, but keep away from foolish questions and genealogies and strife and quarrels about the Torah, for they are unprofitable and useless. It says, in genealogies. You see, my brothers and sisters, those whom Yahuah draw, he draw. If the conviction is there that you are indeed of a specific tribe, then so be it. For in order for the 144,000 at the very least to be visible, those individuals who are in those particular ranks must know what tribe they represent. But there is no scripture that say everyone will know every tribe that you're from. So do not despair. The 144,000 must identify with a tribe because that is necessary to fulfill what is written. The great multitude does not have to know all the different tribes that they originated from or that they're from. What is important is that they know that they are seeking to do the will of the Almighty Father. So let us not spend time for those questions of saying, well, what genealogy, what tribe I am. People are chasing DNA saying, I can prove it. I can prove it. Come away from such wickedness, my brothers and sisters. The time is now. If the conviction is there, if you know without a doubt that the Most High is drawing you as a representative of one of the 12 tribes, if you are indeed one of the 144,000, yield to that drawing power. And know this, when the Most High Father does a work, performs a work, he is successful. In discipline, we will come to know who we are and what we are to do. And if you're not receiving that conviction, that doesn't mean something's wrong. Know that you are a part of Yasharal. Say, I may not know what tribe I am, but I am indeed part of Yasharal. Set apart Yasharal. You see, my brothers and sisters, because there are indeed Hebrews who are wicked, just like there are Gentiles who are wicked. My brothers and sisters, extreme humbling times will come. I can't stress it enough. Soon and very soon, man will move rapidly, trying to seek out food and shelter, a safe place, trying to identify what must and will be done. As Hebrews, as Abri, as the seed of he who is the Father of nations, we have responsibilities and an obligation to yield and listen to the voice of the Spirit of the Almighty Father Yahuah, sent in Yahusha's name to teach us, to guide us, to work in us individually and collectively, one towards another. Yes, my brothers and sisters, it is through Yahusha Mashiach that the many races are grafted together as one. Anyone who is unable to embrace the life and the truth of this message and the priority as it relates to the children of obedience, consider witnessing them face great reproof and correction or being purged from our ranks. It is the seed, it is the spirit of the person that takes priority, for it is the spirit of a man, it is the spirit of a woman, it is the spirit of a child that is set apart, drawn of Yahuah, that is made one, that is restored into life by Yahusha Mashiach, into everlasting life. Again, the earthen vessels will return back to the dust. Yasharal, we are cautioned when it comes to judging another, while at the same time scriptures inform us that the Spirit of Yahuah, sent in Yahusha's name, works within us and can use us to render judgment. Seek to discern the life and understand this. It is important to know that when it comes to rendering judgment, it will be wise to discern whether or not it is indeed the Spirit of Yahusha working in us, or whether we have overstepped our bounds. We must embrace the realities that we in ourselves should not judge one another based on our own wit, our own understanding, our own wisdom. But in walking in obedience, the Spirit of Yahusha will use us. And there will be times we will see the Almighty Father use us to render judgment. Remember, Scripture mentions judgment begins at the house of the Almighty Father. It is written. And I say to you, who has thought about, who has prayed about, who is able to receive that when judgment begins at the house of the Almighty Father, when it begins with us, who do you think is echoing that judgment? Who do you think is speaking that judgment? It is He working in us, through us, to discipline, to refine His children. Yasharal, O Yasharal. Let us realize the realities of what's ahead. There will be those of us who will face persecution. There will be those of us who will face physical death, some even a traumatic death. There will be those of us who will face persecution. There will be those of us who will be killed for Yahusha's name. And there will be those gathered from the four corners of the earth to fulfill the final exodus. You see, my brothers and sisters, there's a lot of people want to just make it, you think that, the Yah is going to take care of you. Almighty Father got you. He's going to take care of us. I hear all of that. But I say to you, O Yasharal, He's going to take care of us. It is the Spirit. Remember, the Scriptures say, he who seeks to gain his life shall lose it. And he who loses his life for the sake of Yahusha HaMashiach shall gain it. So let us gird up and be prepared for whatever comes ahead of us, to know that it is the Spirit. It is our spirit that the Almighty Father has. It is the Spirit that He has in His possession. It is the Spirit, and it is our physical bodies that He will return to the dust. So let us not be afraid of dying, of physical death. Let us not be afraid of persecution. Let us not be worried as end time conditions become cataclysmic. For whatever the Most High has for us, let us know that greater is our life ahead throughout eternity with the Most High than within these earthen vessels as we know it. Let me share 2 Corinthians 4:11 and 12. It says, for we, the living, are always delivered to death for the sake of Yahusha, that the life of Yahusha might also be manifest in our mortal flesh. So that death indeed is working in us, but the life in you. Romans 8:1 says, there is then no condemnation to those who are in Messiah Yahusha, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. Let us discern the life in these words, O Yasharal. That was Romans 8:1. Galatians 5:17 say, for the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are opposed to each other, so that you do not do what you desire to do. You see, my brothers and sisters, my flesh war against the Spirit, your flesh wars against the Spirit. If we came together, your flesh and my flesh will team up to war against my spirit. My flesh and your flesh will team up to war against your spirit. Now imagine as the numbers increase and enlarge. There's a lot of flesh warring against a lot of us individually. But here's the thing, O Yasharal, we who are the seed singular of Abraham, our spirit are made one. So we are one in Yahusha HaMashiach. Unity will come for Yasharal. In spite of all the fighting, in spite of all that we see, discipline will come, and awakening nation will be unified. As we begin to realize that we indeed are awakening and being drawn together, we will escape the strongholds where many are putting race over spirit. Remember, race, our physical bodies will return to the dust. They have a significant impact and importance as the Spirit within us work in these bodies. But it is the Spirit that takes priority. You see, my brothers and sisters, in the resurrection, neither Hebrew nor Gentile, race becomes null and void. It is only a part of these earthen vessels, describing these earthen vessels. We have so much ahead of us, and in eternity, O Yasharal, and knowing that we will be eternally with the Almighty Father, that the life we have in eternity is so much greater than what we have now. Let us hold on to that and not be afraid of what will happen to these bodies. Let us quit battling over the issue of race. Acknowledge what is indeed individuals' race. They must be acknowledged so that we can know the Most High is fulfilling his promises. But let us not stop there. Let us keep the scriptures complete and alive. We have an obligation, O Yasharal. We have an obligation, and it will be fulfilled. The many tasks, there's much work to come about. We must realize the responsibility of the seed of one who is indeed the Father of nations. Romans 9, 6, 7, and 8. Let me read that. Come visit with me. It reads, however, it is not as though the word of the Almighty One has failed. For they are not all Yasharal who are of Yasharal. Neither are they all children, because they are the seed of Abraham. But in Yitzhak your seed shall be called. What this is saying, my brothers and sisters, they may be the seed of Abraham by race, as a descendant, as a Hebrew, as a Abrim, as Hebrew. But the wicked Hebrews are not the seed of set apartness. So we must acknowledge who the true Hebrews are, no doubt. Who true Abrim are, no doubt. We must, and it will, and it is happening. But we will also need to be mindful, as the wicked ones who are Hebrews, they're not our brothers. They're not our sisters. For the priority is in the spirit of oneness in Yahusha Mashiach, the spirit of oneness by the power and might of the Almighty Father Yahuah. My brothers and sisters, like I said, just as there are wicked Gentiles, there are wicked Hebrews. Just as there are set apart Hebrews, Abrim, there are also those drawn by Almighty Yahuah who are Gentiles, who together we are no longer Gentile Hebrew, we are one in Yasharal. I believe the 12 tribes once fulfill what is written in Revelation 7 chapter. Once the specific tribes are mentioned, will all come under one banner. That one banner will be the banner of Yasharal. Keep in mind, O Yasharal, intense times are ahead. We will face moments where swiftness, a sense of urgency, is paramount, is important. We will come to understand what is expected, and we will fall together as a body of set-apart believers brought together as one. I cannot stress how there is so much work to be done. Anyone who fights against the unity that the Almighty Father Yahuah is building, anyone who fights against that will discover that is the most regrettable error, and that they're sadly wrong to fight against that. Arise, O Yasharal, and prepare to witness all the scriptures complete and made whole. In other words, all that is written, once made alive, will prove that the presence of our teacher, the Spirit of Yahusha, is at work within us, working through us directly and working through us one towards another. End times will prove to bring about a sense of urgency like none has ever witnessed before. For these are indeed the final days of man as we know it. Who is able to discern the life in the following? John 14:26. I speak of it often, my brothers and sisters. And it talks about the helper, the comforter. Here we know John 14:26 say, but the helper, the set apart spirit whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all and remind you all. My brothers and sisters, have we given thought to the details of this verse, the life in this verse? Have we thought about what is the face of the life in what I just read? Have we taken a moment? Did we just read through it swiftly, not paying attention? You see, it says the helper. If one is helping you, that means there's some assistance, there's some influence, there's some contribution. It says the set apart spirit. If the spirit is set apart and he's helping us, do you think he would be helping us to not be set apart? He's helping us to be set apart, teaching us. Here John or Yohanan is quoting the Mashiach, and it says, whom the Father shall send in my name. So the Mashiach is letting us know that that helper, that set apart spirit is indeed the spirit of Yahusha, the spirit of Yahuah. And that it is he who should bring things to remembrance. He didn't say trust your brain. He didn't say trust the flesh. He didn't say trust your cognitive factors, your mental state. He said trust him. For centuries, man has wanted to break away to think that they got it, to think we got it, that we're independent of anything, that we can do whatever we want. This is not so. My brothers and sisters, we will either serve the Almighty Father Yahuah or find ourselves among the ranks of the damned and convicted. The helper, the set apart spirit, Yahusha. John 15:26-27 say, when the helper comes, whom I shall send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, whom comes from the Father, he shall bear witness of me. But you also bear witness because you have been with me from the beginning. Let us understand the helper, the set apart spirit. It is indeed the spirit of Yahusha. You see, there's a process in this relationship, my brothers and sisters, to acknowledge the fact that it is through Yahusha that we have fellowship in life, and life abundantly. To acknowledge that is wise. To disregard Yahusha, to say, well, he died and he rose again and he did his part and he'll come back as our sovereign or king. To set him aside would be erroneous, wrong, wicked. We must and we will lift up the name of Yahushua Mashiach. For it is through the name that we acknowledge salvation, set apartness, unity as one. Both Hebrews and Gentiles who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, who is spirit everywhere at all times. Let me read Galatians 5:1, O Yasharal, as I begin to wrap up. Galatians 5:1 said, in the freedom with which Messiah has made us free, stand firm then, and do not again be held with a yoke of slavery. I say this freedom we have is the freedom of the Messiah to work in us, through us, and do as he see fit, according to as he see fit. That was Galatians 5:1. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17 and 18. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17 and 18. Come visit, O Yasharal. It says, now Yahuah is the spirit, and where the spirit of Yahuah is, there is freedom. And we all, as with unveiled face, we see as in a mirror the esteem of Yahuah as being transformed into the same likeness from esteem to esteem as from Yahuah the Spirit. You see, my brothers and sisters, there is much to understand. There's much to learn regarding the dynamics between flesh and spirit. Galatians 5:13 and 14 says, for you, brothers, have been called to freedom. Only do not use freedom as an occasion for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Where does love come from? It comes from Yahuah, the Almighty One. It is through him that we are able to love. It is because of him, the Almighty Father Yahuah, in the name of Yahusha, that I'm able to love my wife, that I'm able to be with my wife for over 33 years. I say hallelujah and praise be to the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name. For the many challenges that we face throughout our life, our 33 years and even beyond, it is the power and might. It is the favor that we have found through Yahuah, the Almighty Father, in Yahusha's name. This freedom, my brothers and sisters, is the freedom for him to work in us and do as he sees fit, according to his written word and his living word. It goes on to say in the 14th verse, for the entire Torah is complete in one word. In this you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And I say again, the only way we can love our neighbor as ourselves is to know love. Who is love? Yahuah is love, my brothers and sisters. Soon and very soon, we must and will begin to come together as a diverse group with one mind, and the mind is to worship and obey the Almighty Father Yahuah through Yahushua Mashiach. That describes those who are indeed the children of Yahuah. The days are here for us to identify anything that poses as an obstacle will be removed or corrected will face the reproof that is necessary to bring about a purging or embracing in forgiveness. My brothers and sisters, end times demand, not ask, it demands our obedience, and soon as extreme humbling times come, we will know what is necessary for us to be obedient, those who must and will fulfill what is written. We will grow to know the full understanding of flesh and spirit. Let us be careful of whom we reject. Let us walk in wisdom regarding all races of people, for among many nations are our brothers and sisters made one under the banner of Yasharal by Yahusha Mashiach. I cannot stress enough, O family of set apart ones, discuss these matters, pray on these words, and seek to discern why this would be considered something serious enough to be labeled under the series Final Exodus Alert. Be encouraged, O Yasharal. The Most High Father Yahuah has promised much more than we can grasp, much more than we can imagine. In due season, things will be made clearer and clearer in the coming days. We have much work to do. Cannot say it enough. Be encouraged, my brothers and sisters. Understand the life in John 12:32 and 6:52 and 6:44. Do not lose focus, my brothers. Let us know the proper place and understand the flesh and the spirit. I leave you with this, O Yasharal. We must and we will rise above all that we have been programmed to think as the result of man's education system. In other words, whatever nation, wherever culture, wherever country we're in, whatever education system we've been exposed to, we will rise above that, for we will be set apart. We will rise and understand as the seed of Abraham, as the seed of he who is the father of nations. We have a responsibility and obligation to be an obedient nation to the Almighty Father. We have a huge responsibility. We cannot be like all others. If you are able to discern the life in this message, let us begin to move with the responsibilities that is set before us. Genesis 17:5, I read again as I bring this to a close. And no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations. I ask you, are we the seed of Abraham? Do we then represent the father of nations? Rise up and begin to assume the most powerful positions as a seed of Abraham, father of nations. Get ready to embrace all those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father Yahuah, the Yahusha Mashiach. Get ready to witness the 144,000 and great multitude whom we may just find ourselves in the ranks of in the coming days, as it begin to take shape, as the world begin to witness promises unfold like never before. Let us walk in wisdom. Let us embrace one another as we come to realize and discern and recognize those who are indeed our brothers, our sisters, that are made one, that are made Yasharal, that are made set apart. Prepare, O Yasharal. Let us come away from the bickering that is unfruitful, that is unwise. But let us be as a sharp sword, sharper than any two-edged sword, as we move in obedience to the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name. Until next time, O Yasharal, do not lose focus. Pursue set apartness earnestly and unwaveringly. Answers come. Our redemption comes. Until next time, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom.